And welcome back to the Correspondents on Voice of America. I'm Arcega in Washington. Well, in the aftermath of the New York City and New Jersey bombings, the attention now turns from the captured suspect, Ahmad Khan Rahami, to what his father, Mohammed Rahami, knew about his son's activities. VOA's Trinh met with a local imam who knew the family and wonders what more could have been done to prevent the attack.
The father of bombing suspect Ahmad Rahami encountered a throng of reporters on Tuesday. At the nearby Masjid Darul Islam, Imam Ali Jabir described the father as a pious man.
I knew the father. He is a devout Muslim.
As a religious representative, the imam contends that recent events have made his role in the community far more complicated.
It's a very difficult job. Now you have to answer political questions, you have to answer questions to the media, and then you got to answer questions to the congregation.
And while these questions have increasing relevance, Jabir was quick to point out that violence has no place in Islam.
To take a life unjustly is like taking the life of all of humanity, and this is a very clear principle in Islam.
While longtime members of his congregation remain faithful to this tenet, the imam believes more than ever the next generation must have the same guidance.
We know the majority of the families. Now we're going to have to know more about the children.
And to find out what we do know about the bombing suspect and how the Muslim community is dealing with this attack, we're joined from our New York studio by VOA's Trinh, who filed that report for us. And in our Washington studio, I'm joined once again by VOA National Security Correspondent Jeff Seldin. It's good to have you both. Thanks for joining us a second time, Jeff, but I'm going to ask Trinh the first question. Tina, I take it from your reporting that these homegrown attacks, like the ones we saw in New Jersey and New York City, pose a bit of a challenge to local Muslim communities. What have they told you?
Well, they've told me that in regards to the community, I mean, it's a very active community, but at the same time, there's a generation gap here that we're talking about, and that is the older generation being devout, faithful, attending the mosque every week for prayers. And then there's a second generation of younger 20-somethings who are kind of straddling two cultures here.
This is a group that's more prone to radicalization, right, Tina?
Exactly, and they're facing maybe a stricter culture at home, and then also a society that they feel alienated from or rejected by outside of the home. So that's a really difficult place to be in, and it also, unfortunately, makes them prime suspects for
the reason why I asked you that question, Tina, is because almost all the time something like this happens, the Muslim community is always asked, why didn't you do more? What did you know? And then they always end up having to defend Islam, that the religion has nothing to do with these attacks. So I'm sensing that kind of frustration. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at its core, any Muslim will tell you that Islam is a peaceful religion, and you can't have a few violent extremists representing an entire religious community. At the same time, thinking about the alienation that these young individuals feel. If we take a look at the Boston Marathon bombings, San Bernardino County bombings, we're talking about young 20-something individuals who are either immigrants or children of immigrants who feel like they have one foot in two places, and they're not in their homeland, and they're also not feeling completely embraced in America, and at the same time rejected, maybe perhaps mad at American foreign policy, and of course the increasing presence of inflammatory rhetoric, Islamophobia that they hear every day, day in and day out since 9/11 doesn't help. It's just throwing fuel on the fire.
No, absolutely. And Jeff, let's take it from what Trinh had to say. Obviously, Rahami sort of fits that profile that she's talking about. What exactly do we know about this man, the suspect, Rahami?
Well, we're learning more and more, and there are some signs that there perhaps were some dangers. He had a past where he was arrested for domestic violence. His father is claiming now that he warned the FBI to watch out for his son, that his son was a terrorist, although there are differing accounts between the father now and from law enforcement officials exactly how much information was given, although the FBI said that they checked him out and they didn't turn up anything at that time, several years ago. We also know that he's traveled. He's traveled both to Pakistan, where perhaps he could have come in contact with groups or members of Al-Qaeda. He's traveled to Turkey, where there's fear perhaps there he came into contact with members of Islamic State, ISIL or Daesh.
So this is a man who came to this country from Afghanistan when he was 7 years old and for some reason ended up becoming radicalized. That would have happened overseas, you think?
Not necessarily. As Tina was mentioning, it doesn't always take a lot, and what experts have said too, it doesn't take a lot to radicalize somebody. If you have somebody who's feeling powerless for whatever reason, they can be attracted to the ideology, which they can readily find online. One thing that we do know from the journal that was recovered after his shootout with police is he wrote about how he was influenced by some of the writings of Anwar al-Awlaki, the former U.S. cleric who became a main propagandist for al-Qaeda. He references brother Adnani, which appears to be a reference to the now deceased former propagandist and main PR spokesman of the Islamic State. So clearly he was seeing some of this stuff. The question becomes, how much contact did he have with other people? And almost always there's some contact. Did he get any training in bomb making? Usually what law enforcement officials say, if you're learning how to make a bomb online, and there are recipes online that Al-Qaeda's put out there, other terrorist groups, you usually make one type of bomb. He didn't make one type of bomb, he made two types of bombs, and it appears that he made them in two different ways. When he was over there, whether it was in Turkey, whether it was in Pakistan, did he get some sort of training? That's what they're trying to figure out now, although officials have been quite clear that while he may have had some help, they do not suspect that he was part of a U.S.-based cell.
Right. And Tina, given the political climate in this country, the fact that there's a lot of anti-Muslim talk or discussion in some of the political debates we're seeing, do you think that may be exacerbating the problem, perhaps, among this group of younger Muslims that tend to be more open to this kind of radicalization?
Definitely, without a doubt. I mean, it is just adding fuel to the fire at this point, and it is something that I think jihadists overseas would be saying and responding to. Thanks for doing the work for us, because
right.
If you have youth in America who are feeling disenfranchised, this is definitely not helping the cause, and so they can easily take up the torch in the name of Islam, but that could be a cover for many different things that are going on in their lives that make them feel disenfranchised.
So Tina, is that what Imam Ali Jabbar is saying when he says he knows the families now we need to get to know their children? Is that what he's proposing?
That's exactly what it is. And they have, when I was speaking to him, he said over and over again, we're the oldest mosque in the community, we know everyone, and at the same time, that younger generation, we feel them growing apart from us, going away from us, and so it really is about kind of reinvigorating those efforts to reach out to them and to also show the community exactly how much work they do in providing social support for families, for Muslim families in the community, and how much work they do to also help assimilate immigrant families as well, too.
And Jeff, last question, because I'm out of time again, as always. What can authorities possibly learn from the arrest of Rahami?
Well, they're going to learn more about whether or not he was connected with anything. From previous reporting that we've done, we know that a lot of times there are connections, whether there's a cell or whether it's just people who want to be jihadists in this country.
Which websites he's been visiting. We'll find out
which
who
websites,
he talked
what
to.
type of propaganda,
Right.
but also whether or not he's connected to another group that's perhaps flown under the radar. Okay. Not necessarily a cell, but a loosely affiliated group of other people who may be thinking the same thing.
Thank you, Jeff Seldin, and thank you, Tina Trinh. We're going to take another break now, but when we come back, we'll talk with a reporter on the scene in Charlotte, the site of massive protests there over the shooting death of an African-American man. And just a reminder, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, and comments on our Facebook page. The address is VOA The Correspondents. We'll be right back.